While the world isn't paying attention, Canada and Mexico are making moves that are quietly shaking the foundations of US economic influence. This isn't just about tariffs anymore. It's about something bigger, power. Not just economic power, but political influence and control. The kind that doesn't come from military strength, but from trade routes, supply chains, and financial leverage. It starts with a signature: 25% tariffs slapped on Canadian and Mexican imports overnight. Just an economic punch meant to send a message: we're in charge. But here's the part Washington isn't ready for. Canada and Mexico aren't flinching. No panic, no desperate calls for compromise. Instead, they're responding with something more effective than retaliation: strategy. While the US focuses on posturing, Canada and Mexico are drawing up blueprints, not for revenge, but for realignment. This isn't shaping up to be a simple trade dispute. It's looking like an economic reckoning. Canada isn't lashing out. They're calculating targeted tariffs. Instead of reacting emotionally, Canada is hitting back with tariffs that target specific US goods, tied to key political districts, the kind of pressure that echoes in Congress, not just on Wall Street. Diversifying supply chains, Canada is quietly reducing its reliance on US imports, strengthening trade ties with Europe and Asia. Strategic partnerships, they're deepening global relationships, not out of spite, but to ensure they're never in this vulnerable position again. Because Canada understands the best retaliation isn't fighting back, it's making sure you never need to. While Canada plays defense, Mexico is playing offense. They aren't just reacting to the tariffs. They're using this as an opportunity to build an economy where the US isn't the central player. New trade deals. Mexico is locking in agreements with the EU, China, and South America, opening new markets and reducing dependency on the US, boosting domestic manufacturing. Investments are pouring into Mexican industries, cutting down reliance on cross-border supply chains. Infrastructure expansion. Mexico is building new ports, rail lines, and trade routes that bypass US influence entirely. For Mexico, this isn't a setback, it's a reset. And every deal they sign is another crack in the foundation of US economic dominance. The US thought the tariffs would hurt Canada and Mexico, but the real pain is landing right here at home. Grocery prices surge. Food imports from Mexico are more expensive, and it's hitting wallets. Fruits, vegetables, basic staples rising. Fuel costs and energy supply chains are disrupted, driving up gas prices across the board. Here's the part no one wants to admit. Tariffs aren't taxes on other countries. They're taxes on your own people. When companies pay more to import goods, they don't absorb the cost. They pass it on to you. While tariffs dominate the headlines, another war is brewing quietly, a currency war. Canada's quiet shift. They're reducing reliance on the US dollar in key trade deals, shifting toward the euro and UN. It's subtle, but it sends a message. We've got options. Mexico's strategic devaluation. Mexico is adjusting the value of the peso to make its exports more competitive globally, hurting US businesses without firing a single tariff back. But this isn't just about economics. It's psychological warfare. Because when confidence in the dollar shakes, the whole world feels it. And once that confidence cracks, it's not easy to patch it back together. Behind the scenes, corporate America is struggling. Factories are stalling. Critical parts from Canada and Mexico aren't moving, shutting down production lines across the US. The auto industry bleeds. Car manufacturers are facing massive delays. It's not because of big, complex systems. It's because of missing a single part. Tech companies scramble. The shortage of key materials is driving up costs and slowing down innovation. And the longer this drags on, the deeper the financial wounds get. Because here's the worst part. There's no quick fix when supply chains break. You can't just restart them overnight. While the focus has been on goods and tariffs, Canada and Mexico are hitting somewhere even more critical: energy. The US relies on both countries for oil, natural gas, and electricity. And now that reliance is becoming a vulnerability, oil prices spike. Canada is rerouting key exports, creating supply gaps that drive up fuel costs and grid strain. Mexico is redirecting energy supplies, leaving parts of the US struggling to meet demand. Desperation for alternatives. The US is scrambling to find new energy sources at much higher prices. The US thought energy was its stronghold, but it turns out it's the Achilles heel. Global economies don't collapse all at once. They collapse when the movement stops. Cargo ships are stuck. Goods sit idle at ports, waiting for clearances that never come. Half-finished products. Factories can't complete items because they're missing critical components. Truckers sitting idle with nothing to transport. Supply chains grind to a halt. This isn't just a slowdown, it's a full-blown supply chain crisis. And the longer it lasts, the harder it is to restart. While factories and tech get the headlines, there's another crisis quietly brewing on American farms. Targeted retaliation. Canada and Mexico aren't just imposing random tariffs. They're targeting US agriculture with sniper-like precision. Falling demand. US corn, dairy, and soy exports are facing bans or restrictions in key markets. Crops at risk. Unlike factories, farmers can't just pause production. Crops grow or they rot, while politicians argue about trade policy. Ordinary people are feeling the squeeze. Rising prices, milk, bread, eggs, are all more expensive. Gas at record highs. Energy costs ripple into every corner of daily life. Rent and living costs climb. Inflation doesn't just hit products. It hits housing, services, everything. And even if the tariffs disappear tomorrow, the damage is done. Because once prices rise, they rarely fall back down. But while America is busy fighting trade wars with its neighbors, the rest of the world isn't waiting. New trade alliances form. Countries in Europe, Asia, and South America are signing new agreements, bypassing the US altogether. Global supply chains shift. Nations once reliant on US partnerships are now finding new routes and new markets, reducing US influence without fanfare. Major companies are moving operations to countries with stable trade environments, leaving behind empty warehouses and lost jobs. Investment pullbacks. International investors are pulling out of US markets faster than they arrived, looking for more predictable returns elsewhere. Billion-dollar deals signed abroad. Contracts that could have boosted the US economy are being signed in Singapore, Frankfurt, Mexico City, anywhere but Washington. So what's next? Does Canada and Mexico keep pushing? Does the US double down? Or has the world already moved on without waiting for an answer? If this breakdown gave you something to think about, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter. Drop your thoughts in the comments. How do you think this ends? Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.